Every day around the world, human beings deploy a gigawatt of solar power. The problem is the great Bill McKibben says, winning slowly is the same as losing.
SRM refers to large-scale, intentional approaches that increase the amount of sunlight reflected back into space. It's a relatively simple technology that is immensely complex when it comes to how it could be used, the potential impacts, and the power dynamics at play.
We, in the last year, have drawn the difficult conclusion that we have to at least research this option.
SRM is not a solution to the climate crisis. It is an approach that may be able to limit some harm and suffering. We have natural analogs like volcanic eruptions that illustrate potential effectiveness at temperature reduction. However, there's still uncertainty about other types of physical and social impacts. Communities and countries most vulnerable to climate change have the most at stake in SRM conversations, yet they've been largely left out. Decisions about solar geoengineering are already being made, whether around lobbying, research, or policy, often quietly or without public input. This is one way we push back on that. Governance is any process that affects or involves decision-making at all different scales with both state and non-state actors.
The starting point for a lot of folks is to be uncomfortable, and that's understandable. Like, I think in an ideal world, none of us would be actually on this stage talking about solar geoengineering, but we are experiencing, we're living through escalating impacts of climate change, and it's forcing us to have a lot of uncomfortable conversations.
Here we are talking about something we never wanted to talk about.
SRM exists foundationally because of justice, because there are harms that are coming, and we need to think about potential pathways that could limit that harm.
Can you imagine what would have happened if the rivers in the United States started to dry up 20 years ago, as they did in Darfur? The kind of emissions mitigation and everything else that would have been done in a heartbeat, and the trillions of dollars would have been thrown at it, and the entire focus of the world that would have been pushed on it. And it is simply because the people currently dying from climate change don't happen to be in this city that we are not moving at a greater speed and being less ideological about what we're willing to do and not do. Because damn, we would throw that stuff out if we were dying right here. That's where I feel the difference about who's being affected and how it affects policy and focus.
We are, without a doubt, encouraging fellow environmental justice organizations to take a very serious look at solar geoengineering as a solution that we need to have to avert the crisis. We understand that we are in a climate crisis, but the one thing that I understand as well is that while we are in a climate crisis, we are also in a crisis of imagination.
I don't want to put the world, the globe, the planet on chemotherapy and think that we're going to basically solve the problem. I'm not sure that's going to work. We don't have enough information to develop, I think, an informed decision yet. We are not at all comfortable with deployment. Not there at all. If you deploy this and it changes the monsoon weather patterns in South Asia, we are screwed. We're screwed worse than what we are right now.
Are we on track to avoid catastrophic climate change? Does anybody think we're on track? Do we have a plan for that? Does anybody think we have a plan?
The fact that we're struggling as much as we are is, deeply concerning to anybody who lives on this planet and cares about climate change.
I think the stakes are too high this time, guys. We can't afford to be stupid activists. We've got to sit in the chair with the policymakers and understand the hard decisions and get behind the best option, because we're up shit creek. There is no perfect option here.
The climate movement has really been built around this sense of urgency, and we've always put it around time. But there's also this sense of urgency around making sure that we bring as many communities along with us as possible.
If I have something that I want to research on the lands of indigenous peoples, I have to have free consent. That is to say, it's not either financially incentivized or any kind of forcing. Prior consent, that is to say, I don't show up with my gear and say, we would like to conduct a test, may we do it? An informed consent, which is for an indigenous peoples organization or political institution to make an informed decision, they have to have the internal capacity to make an informed decision, right? Because the power dynamics are super questionable in a situation where you have to rely on the goodwill and the word of someone else.
OMG. Have you noticed how many uncertainties we're talking about here and how much science is needed? If there's one thing everybody takes away from this panel, it's that there is a lot of work ahead of us if we want to lean into options to address the climate crisis. Questions about impacts of SRM on agriculture, on water cycle. These are just really important topics, and so much more is needed.